What up, people? Push While Black here, and this is an impromptu vlog about an article that I heard about yesterday concerning Colin Kaepernick and his lack of not getting a job as of yet, written by Bomani Jones from The Undefeated, and I actually heard it from Sports 670 The Scores on their afternoon show when Jason Goff, one of my favorite sports radio hosts, was talking about it. And he gave a very passionate 10-minute discussion about this. And it was actually it actually kind of spilled over into a conversation that was needed but scared of. People are scared to have this conversation. So I have thoughts, and I'm going to read your article and kind of give from a corporate standpoint, because I think black people really don't understand. We do, but no one really wants to talk about it because a lot of times in the media, we get really idealistic when it comes to things, when the reality of the situation is something different. So I'm going to read the article and then I'm going to give my thoughts from a corporate standpoint, and hopefully I don't get too much heat for it, but here it goes. Okay. It is imperative to cut through the noise surrounding Colin Kaepernick's current unemployment, and nothing is noisier than the idea that NFL teams will not sign Kaepernick because he is a distraction. It is football's laziest cliche, a catch-all for anything or anyone a team might not like. Stop hiding behind code. Stop trumpeting the idea that sports are the ultimate mediocracy, then shrug and say, them's the breaks, in the face of a visible potential case of discrimination. It is intellectually disingenuous at best, indefensible cowardice at worst, and sounds entirely like the worst of past evaluations and coverage of black athletes. Scrutinize these notions. Either one is saying the fans are simply too intolerant to handle their disagreement with Kaepernick, or Cap should have just kept his mouth shut. Treating Kaepernick as a distraction means avoiding two important questions: distraction from what, and whom would be distracted. Dan Graziano of ESPN touched on the way distraction is thrown around to the point of being meaningless, but he didn't mention something important. We don't have to blindly guess about what would happen if a team added Cap. We have seen what it's like for a team to have post-protest Kaepernick on his roster. And that's the problem for distraction truthers. There is no evidence Cap's presence made the 49ers worse. Was the locker room divided among fissures of race and politics? Would they have won 4 games had he had stood for the anthem in every game? None of those things were true of the 2016 San Francisco 49ers, unless being distracted is why Niners receivers dropped so many passes, according to the analyst. Seeing Fahey, I totally butchered that name. Niners receivers had the highest drop percentage in the league. Coach Jim Kelly, who arrived under a cloud of suspicion from former players that he couldn't handle independently minded players, didn't find Kaepernick impossible to work with. The Niners didn't splinter along political or racial lines. In fact, many players said that Cap started valuable conversations. The media, the primary generator of distractions, didn't cover Kaepernick endlessly before he took over as starting quarterback for Blaine Gabbert or after. No matter what Joe Thomas says, the backup quarterback only becomes hot topic when fans want him to start. And those who hate him want anything but that. So what does distraction mean? After all, he said he will stand for the national anthem from now on. If the action was offensive, remember, I'm okay with the message, but not the method crowd. That's off the table. All that's left is the man himself and what he's come to represent. Those offended and those who will take no issue with the NFL capitulating to their hurt feelings should state their actual problem with him. Then we can discuss how problematic views are accepted, while a call of fairness could end in banishment. Or we could address what makes it so typical to tease out exactly why Kaepernick remains jobless. It is hard to tell if he is being treated as an unruly black man or just a black quarterback. So many are forced to take the word of scouts, those who talk to scouts, who the rap on Kaepernick as a quarterback sounds, let me move my screen down a little bit. The rap on Kaepernick as a quarterback sounds exactly what we've heard before about scores of black quarterbacks decade after decade. Not even Cam Newton, 2015 NFL MVP, could shake the rap of being a mobile quarterback who couldn't read a defense, even as he carried subpar offensive talent and skilled and otherwise for 6 seasons, while so many analysts swore the aforementioned Gabbert was a better pro prospect than Newton. How can we trust the same guys when they swore Gabbert was better than Kaepernick in San Francisco? Or the ones who offered rationalizations for how Mike Glennon became a starting caliber QB by riding the pine for 2 years but refusing to acknowledge Cap's indisputable improvement last year. And perhaps we could address the cruelest irony of this. Cap's stand was a refusal to pay homage to American ideas because he couldn't ignore America's reality. Now, writers and fans are ignoring the same ideas, and their defense of that outlook is its reality. As of the writing of this, we are all guessing about why Kaepernick doesn't have a job. We could dress that up with the words such as hypothesize and conjecture, but all anyone is trying to figure out why someone obviously good enough to play in the NFL at the scarce position hasn't received a substantive phone call from a general manager. That's enough circumstantial evidence to arrive at any conclusion whether or not to set his or her GPS to that destination. But let's stop pretending that teams are afraid of distractions. Don't forget the New York Giants. Don't forget the New York Giants, one of the classy organizations, held on to a kicker embroiled in controversy after abusing his wife until the story got too big to ignore. Joe Mixon's incidents of violence against women captured on vehicle will hang over the rest of his life, and some team will happily take him at a discounted price in the 2017 draft. And never forget, after a poor passing season, flipping off home fans in 2006, Michael Vick was running low on chances. Then he became a national dog-fighting pariah in 2007. Convicted in 2008, backup QB in 2009, quasi feel-good story in 2010, before becoming the NFL's first two-time $100 million man in 2011, and somehow Eagles kept their fans and that team didn't. And somehow Eagles kept their fans and its team didn't lose its mind. It seems NFL teams are better at focusing than they give themselves credit for. There is a problem when those in the business of being curious insist that there is nothing to see, despite history and the fact that there was more interest in Kaepernick's horrible 2015 season from those, including Trump supporter and Broncos head honcho John Elway, than after his better, healthier campaign. At once, so many say the NFL is a win at all costs, while saying teams should acquiesce to the views of their owners and fans while never attempting to reconcile those conflicting takes. Kaepernick is good enough to play quarterback in the NFL. Few are run out of the league after posting a 4-to-1 touchdown interception ratio with someone like Jeremy Curley as his top receiving threat. Yet none of us are sure if he will ever take the field again. That wouldn't be the breaks. That would be a league that uses the power of non-guarantee contracts, not only to maintain status quo, but to enforce it. That would be a league whose players deal with the specter of the police every day, but stands in solidarity with those who want to make their players' lives more difficult than they should be. Those ideas of all of us should be those are ideas all of us should be questioning. Instead, most football fans would rather avoid what's real, and far too many with the power to reach them insist on doing the same. Okay, so that was from Bomani Jones, and that was a good article. Okay, so here are my thoughts on that article and the whole Colin Kaepernick situation. And I did a vlog about this when he first started doing this. And I said, check it out, me and Anthony did that one. And I said, and he said, this was going to happen. He's going to get blackballed. We said this. Here's the thing. Like, we can write this. Bomani Jones can write this article. Jason Goff can get not mad, but he can speak passionately about the article and about what's really going on. This is the angry black man situation. And corporately, because I've had this happen to me as a working in the corporate America and I've had this happen to me twice. Okay, one job I got let go from, and one job I'm still able to be, comfortably, but I had to change some things. NFL is a business. Whether we like it or not, the NFL is a business, okay? And Bomani Jones is right. Distraction is code word for we don't want to deal with whatever. We don't like the situation. The league didn't like the fact that he did that, but they couldn't really do anything. Is collusion at play here? Yes, it is. Collusion is at play here. He's getting blackballed, but it seems like he's getting blackballed. I honestly believe this article was written a little too early. If this was week 4 and he still didn't have a job and we're seeing a bunch of nonsense at QB, I'd be like, okay, it's time for you to write this article. It seems a little too early because at some point, I think somebody's going to get injured or somebody's going to suck really, really bad, and he's going to get a phone call somewhere. We haven't even reached training camp yet. You know what I'm saying? It hasn't been the draft. We haven't reached training camp yet. He could just be a camp arm. Now, is that ridiculous? Probably. It is. And he did have a very good last season, especially the last 4 games, with no receiving core, with no decent receiving core. We got to also remember, though, that Colin Kaepernick, since the Super Bowl appearance, hasn't really played very well consistently. And see, here's the thing, and this is what happened with Tim Tebow. Because yes, this happened with Tim Tebow. He didn't get blackballed, but people just didn't want him around when he's really not that good of a QB. And this happened with Michael Sam because of the gay thing. And to be quite honest, ESPN propped that man up to be higher than what he actually was as a football player. And I'm not saying Colin Kaepernick is as bad as Tim Tebow or anything, or he's not that good of a QB. But since his Super Bowl appearance, he's been inconsistent. Okay? Since that Super Bowl season, he's been very, very inconsistent. He had that amazing year when everybody was shocked off by the pistol, and then since Harbaugh has left, he has gone down a little bit. Then you do the protest. And when you do the protest, and again, we got to think of sports as a business. We got to think of sports as a job. Okay? It's a job. So you can't write this article and then be like, well, he needs to apply his craft. Well, yeah, he needs to apply his craft, but you can get blackballed by industry, and the industry is the NFL is relatively small. So even though legally you didn't do anything wrong, and constitutionally you didn't do anything wrong by protesting, no one has to deal with you. And see, this is what people don't understand. Yeah, if you're in a corporate environment, you can say whatever you want. The Constitution, freedom of speech is real. You can say whatever you want. You can protest whatever you want. But at the end of the day, the government's not going to get you if you say something out of line or if you protest and do something. But corporately, and if we look at the NFL as a corporate entity as far as football players go, the NFL can be like, all right, we don't have to put you on our squad we don't have to put you in another department. If we look at the NFL as a corporate dynamic and we look at each of the 32 teams as a department, they let you go. And they don't have to really deal with you if they don't want to. And I know it sucks. And I know, like, as a black person, I've had it done to me. As a black disabled person, I've had it done to me. Where you fight for something loudly, and then they say, when it's time for you to be let go, or when something happens and your job goes away, no one's trying to save you. And that's what this is. The point of the article is valid, but what did you expect to happen? And the NFL is not going to just say openly, because they can, but it's not going to sound right if they say, well, as a league, if they say, well, we don't like the fact that he did that. We don't like the fact that he did that. We don't like the fact that he offended so many people that he knelt before the national anthem. Okay? They're not going to say that collectively. To the point of bringing other athletes into this. All that stuff hurts the shield. And I'm going to bring up, and I brought up Tim Tebow and I brought up Michael Sam, because people were bringing up Michael Vick, people were bringing up the Giants kicker, people were bringing up Josh Gordon, people were bringing up Johnny Manziel. Okay? Josh Gordon is out of the league. Johnny Manziel drunk himself out the league. He's out the league now. Okay? So they're out the league now. As far as the kicker, the NFL has a very, very kind of, we don't, we're not listening, we're not watching attitude towards domestic violence. That's a bad example. It's an example, but it's a bad example, because they don't really take domestic violence seriously at all until something bad happens. that being said, the Michael Vick situation, there's still glimpses of Vick being amazing. And he really, and he really wasn't, he really didn't show, when the dogfighting thing happened, he was on the Madden cover, everything was awesome. Michael Vick just did a stupid thing. He went to jail. Andy Reid took a shot on him. Andy Reid took a shot on him. It actually worked. Chip Kelly's when Chip Kelly came to the Eagles, that actually worked more. It's just Vick got hurt. Vick is a transcendent talent. We don't know if Colin is. I get the point about black athletes. Especially black quarterbacks. I get that point. But Vick was a transcendent talent. Of course he was going to get an opportunity. Can you honestly think that Colin Kaepernick is a transcendent talent? Is he better than a lot of QBs out there? Yeah, he's better than a lot of QBs out there. They brought up Bomani Jones brought up Mike Glennon. And as a Bears fan, and as someone that's actually watched the Bears, and as someone that actually pays attention to Chicago sports radio and Chicago and how the Bears and what they're doing and what John Fox is and what the type of coach he likes to be, and especially considering how they completely failed on the Ray McDonald situation a couple years ago when Fox was the coach and Ryan Pace, that was his big free agent signing. You're not signing that. You're not signing Kaepernick to a deal. You're not doing that. You've already, that can't be, I agree, it's wrong, but they're not going to make that move. It's not going to happen. Okay? They're not going to make that move. Kaepernick, you're not going to deal with the issues of him and the protests. It's a cop-out. I get the point of the article, the distraction being a cop-out in a larger term, but let's be real. To put Mike Glennon and the Bears in that situation, you don't understand the culture, what they're trying to do. They're not going to sign Kaepernick. Mike Glennon is a unproven commodity. We've seen what Cap can do and what he can't do, and how inconsistent he can be, and how that you might have to tweak the offense for him. Same for Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow has talent, but you know what? There was a distraction for Tebow the wrong way. Not because of Tebow being a bad guy. His fans are stupid. So a lot of people did, and he's a bad practice player. He's good in certain situations of the game, but do you really want him in your locker room? Not because he's a bad guy, but because anytime as a backup QB, anytime your regular QB does anything wrong or gets injured, there's clamoring for Tebow as soon as the season starts. And he hasn't proven anything yet. Michael Sam, ESPN propped Michael Sam up. Michael Sam, in any other draft guide that season, wasn't draftable. He's undersized. He's a package linebacker, and he wasn't a draftable. He was listed as an undrafted free agent, and they had him going sixth. ESPN had him going like either fifth or in the fifth or sixth round. So yeah, those are two. No one's gonna the first gay player thing. No one's gonna deal with the distraction, even though the point of the article is distraction being a bad word here. No one's gonna deal with the distraction or the issues that go along with controversial players if they're not good. If we didn't see glimpses of awesomeness. And for Colin Kaepernick, quite honestly, we haven't seen enough. And it's really early to write this article, to write this piece. It's too early to do this yet. I worked for an organization for 4 years, and I've probably told this story ad nauseum. And not to get into the particulars, but I worked in this organization for 4 years, and not the NFL, but just an organization. It shall remain nameless for the purposes of this. And for 2 years, it was awesome. And then it became apparent that for whatever reason, I think it was because of ableism more than anything else, that I couldn't get ahead at all. And I fought that. And I went to HR and I argued and I threw my weight around a little bit. And the last 2 years were really bad, to the point that I thought about leaving, but it was a good job. And it was one of those jobs where it was really hard to get fired from. And I still hit my bonuses. I still did what I needed to do as a worker, but I fought stuff. When it became apparent that my job was ending or there was an opportunity to let me go, I got let go. Being a black man in corporate America, that happens. That happens a lot. And we deal with stuff. And this is what that was. And the NFL is not going to say, we think he's an angry black man. We didn't like his protests. We're going to blackball him now. They legally can't say that. We know what it is. You can't compare this to other players because, quite honestly, and I'm not saying Colin Kaepernick's a bad football player. He's not. And I'm not saying he's one of the worst QBs in the league. He's not. There are better. He is better than Mike Glennon. He is better than Cody Kessler. He's better than a lot of quarterbacks that are starting now. That's not the point. He's not that consistently good. Even though he had a very good last part of the season, he's not consistently good. And you do have to tweak an offense for him. He's not a pure pocket passer. Okay? This isn't Cam, since we want to go there. Cam could actually run a standard offense. Okay? Cap, they had to put Cap in the pistol. Since Harbaugh has left, this is undeniable. Since Harbaugh has left, he is kind of, other than the last 4 or 5 games last season when he started, he really hasn't played well. So are you really what's the situation is, are you really going to start him? And are you really going to deal with the media situation that's going to happen? And ironically, Bomani Jones writes for the company that's going to do this the most. The first truck, if he's the day he starts, the first truck that's going to be in training camp, if he gets signed training camp, if he becomes a camp arm somewhere in somebody's training camp, ESPN is going to be right there every day. And they're going to make the biggest deal about this every day because they do that. They overpump everything. They're classic at doing that. And they're making it about nothing. So ironically, even though he's talking about distraction in this article and how bad and how it's a code word for other things, which I agree it is. But there is some truth to people saying, hey, this is going to be a distraction now. Because it is. Because the media is going to make a deal about this. And some players or some coaches and teams are not going to want to deal with it. Mainly the Bears. Again, you mentioned Glennon in the article, but John Fox isn't going to deal with this. John Fox isn't going to deal with this. He's not. You traded. This is what you traded to get your guys in there. The Chicago Bears in one offseason traded Brandon Marshall, traded Martellus Bennett, let Brandon Marshall go, Martellus Bennett go, and Matt Forte go. Their entire offense they let go. Alshon Jeffrey they didn't offer a deal to because they didn't like him. Like, come on, man. Like, that's the most bland. The Bears are going to be the most bland team possible this season. This is not. No, they're not gonna deal with that. They're just not. You know what I'm saying? Especially for a quarterback that is good when he's good, but is horrible when he's bad. And that's what it is. Kaepernick's not a project. We can see what he's able to do. And he's inconsistent. That's why he's getting blackballed. Inconsistent quarterbacks are going to be all over this league this year, but nobody's going to have cameras in front of their face. He will be. So while I agree with this, I think we just want to be angry about the fact that he shouldn't get a job. That we just want to be angry at the fact that he should be working. This is nonsense. Why don't people just talk about? Why don't people just say what it is? Why does everybody have to use code when you know the reason? I don't know. I honestly think at some point during the season he will get a job somewhere just because he has a skill and somebody's going to get hurt. But but if you can avoid dealing with the little thing, the nonsense that comes with, controversial players, you're not going to deal with that. And some controversy, it doesn't matter. This is disrespecting the national anthem. This is a cherishable thing. This is a cherishable thing to older white people. And oh, by the way, the idea that you're catering to older white people, and this is what Jason Goff was bringing up. The idea that you're catering to older white people, and this is the real reason why he's not getting the real reason why he's quote unquote not getting a job. This is the reason that no one's stating. As an NBA guy, you should already know that you should already understand that that's real, because we've watched the league basically get scared off of one player and his street attitude. After making money off of him, they got scared of white people, of old white men not going to the games because of one player and the street element creeping in. So the 70s, this was not a problem. The 80s, this was not a problem. When Allen Iverson came out and street culture kind of seeped in, this became a problem, and then people got scared. So the dress code happened. We're airbrushing tattoos. We're doing all this stuff. So why are we surprised that the NFL is like, no, we're not getting with GMs are like, no, we're not going to deal with this, because people are going to say stuff. People don't say a lot of stuff sadly, when a domestic violence situation happens. And with the Joe Nixon thing, just one more point, you can make an argument you can make an argument, honestly, it's a bad one, but you can, because I heard it. You can make an argument that the Joe Nixon thing was, one, he's 18 years old. Two, that was self-defense because she hit him first. But that part you don't see. You just hear witness accounts, and you hear witness accounts of the situation, but it doesn't matter because he's a big athlete and she's a girl. And it doesn't matter if she cussed at him. It doesn't matter that she used the N-word. It doesn't matter that she hit him first. What matters is she got knocked out in a chair. She got knocked out and hit and fell into a chair, and he lost his head because, as men, we can't lose our tempers. And I'm not advocating violence against women. I'm just saying sometimes life is not a Lifetime movie. But he'll still get a chance to play because he's a beast of a college player, and he seems contrite. So I don't know. Like, you mess with the flag, you mess with one of the symbols of this country, even though you not the flag, you mess with the national anthem, one of the great symbols of this country, even though the national anthem had to be edited because, you know, one of the verses is about slave hunting. I don't know, man. Rich white people are scared, and he got blackballed. Which, if you were paying any attention to anything in the past like couple of years before Trump, we don't even have to mention Trump's little troll about Kaepernick. This was happening, like, this was permeating a couple of years before Trump. This climate has been here for the past couple of years, and no one is surprised at this. Why are you surprised at this? I'm not saying the article shouldn't be written. I'm not saying that I don't agree with it. I'm just saying, can we stop being surprised at stuff? There are rules to this. And I think sometimes we don't understand that if you're going to be a truth teller, if you're going to be an activist, sometimes you lose out on stuff. And that's just what it is. And he might lose out on maybe a couple of months of not working. Anyway, push the ball blackout. Later, y'all.